Oh my, I fell out of the bag. Amanda, did you escape? Amanda?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you get out of the bag?
I got out of the bag.
Thank God.
It's probably because that guy broke St. Nicholas's head.
That's what I was about
off.
to ask. It's because you fucking sacrificed St. Nicholas, the porcelain doll.
Oh my gosh.
Shame on you.
I don't know what happened. I didn't do it.
I know, but
I did send a picture, so I guess that didn't help.
it's like the shadow doll. Badness travels in pictures.
Right.
All right, I think it's time to start the Demon Holiday Special.
Warning. The topics discussed on this podcast are subject to adult themes and languages. We seek to unravel the unexplained and unknown. This is Encounters.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Encounters. I'm Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
And today, we're giving you the dark history of Christmases long since past. And all the spooky demons that lie in the shadows.
Y'all think we will forget about Christmas?
This is Krampus 2.0, and we're going to tell you all about the spooky creatures that were companions of St. Nicholas.
Even St. Nick had some shiesty characters that hung around him.
Oh, you're a murderer? Let's go!
Right? Come on. Let's go visit children.
It's funny, they all became elves in the end.
Right? Oh, God. Do you think if, like, the North Pole was real, it'd be full of, like, Krampus, like, making toys? With the, like, you know, the fucking Christmas cat. And they're just, like, putting toys
Fucking
together,
Frau
making
Puchetta
iPhones.
with her big-ass knife, like, whittling down little Barbies. I'm gonna stab so many people in the stomach this year.
Right, like, they're getting...
That just leads me to be like, what does Mrs. St. Nicholas look like then? What if it is Frau Puchetta?
Oh, man.
Mrs. Claus coming with them claws, y'all.
Right, get it.
Santa Claus. That's how you say it in German.
Oh, gosh.
So I guess the first place to start would be going back to where Christmas comes from.
Right? Before Christianity, pre-Christian traditions.
So the concept of the winter solstice is what's celebrated from the 25th, from the 21st to the 25th, right?
I think it actually celebrated...
Because the winter solstice starts today, Friday.
Yes, it starts today, but I think... Oh, no, that can't...
Saturnalia, though, was celebrated from December 15th to December 25th.
Yeah, most of the stuff we're talking about was way before the 25th. Like, St. Nicholas, his day is on the 6th. So, this whole month is pretty much celebrated with different festivals and things like that. I think some of the more notable celebrations are the winter solstice that is on the 21st, and then you have some celebrations on the 25th, like Mithra's birthday, which is a sun god, and what is it, Saturnalius?
Yeah, Saturnalia, which was celebrated by the Romans for the sun god Saturn.
And most of all of these celebrations are celebrating the sun coming back. Because
with some other religions, like Nordic religions and Eastern Germanic religions, and the more pagan religions, you get the aspect of Yule, or Yule, which is celebrated because their culture looks at the year as a wheel. And the winter solstice is the shortest day of the year, so it is at that point being the bottom of the wheel. And they celebrate Yule in hopes that the sun will return.
Yeah.
And it does, because as you go from the 21st on, the days start getting longer, the sun starts appearing again, and you continue to worship life and bringing the sun into your house.
Right? Because, a lot of these people were farmers, so freaking got food. Like we mentioned in the Halloween episode, like the winter is a dark time, which is scary and bad. So a lot of times during December, since they're not working because it's too cold and it gets dark earlier, they celebrate and they're with their families.
The Christmas season, in fact, in this time was even known as the time for demons and monsters. And what these people would do to celebrate this time would be to bring in life, literally. In their landscape, they would see evergreen trees that were still green while all the other forestation around it was dying. So they thought that was a symbol of life, and they would cut those trees down and bring them into their house. And since they were worshiping the sun, they would often put candles into this tree or at the top of this tree in regards to bringing the sun in. They would also give gifts. Saturnalia, that was a Roman holiday, and it wasn't as nice and pleasant as Yule and Joel were. There's a lot of raping going on, a lot of intoxication, nudity, sex, and the Christians eventually came along and were like, "Whoa, okay, we can still party. We can still party, but we're gonna celebrate our Lord." And the pagans were like, "Yeah, do whatever you want, as long as we can still like run around, have sex, drink, rape people, great." And then the church is like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And then like the next year, they're like, "Yeah, okay, so this year you could drink, no raping, y'all."
Right.
You can't do that. Yeah. No pillaging. No, sorry. Put some clothes on.
No more sex. Shit. Wait till you're married. And so by the end, all they got to do is drink, but they were still having a good time.
But even as this adoption process happened, it took millennia to get to the Christmas we have today.
Yeah.
Eventually, the word that we know for Christmas would stem from Christ Mass, which would be the church's way of glorifying the birth of Jesus Christ on the 25th of December. But many of the adopting Christmas holiday traditions that we would bring in stay with us. And we're going to give you some explanations behind some of them and introduce you to the man behind Santa Claus.
Good old Saint Nick, man.
Yes, Saint Nicholas, the 4th century saint.
He's a patron saint of children.
Mm-hmm. And gift giving and like just being an all-around good old dude.
Yeah.
It's really funny that because we know him as jolly old Saint Nick, right?
Yes.
Nick is like an old slang term name for the devil.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
So it was interesting. Old Nick is the devil.
Huh.
You just throw jolly in it, and he's a big old elf. Big old nice man that wants to come around and give you some money.
And it's real interesting, too, how they portray, like, Santa Claus is this kind of, like, fat man in this red outfit. Saint Nick was skinny. And he had, like, a big old hat on, and he wore, like, bright colors. Like, he looks nothing like Santa Claus.
Well, it's the years of feeding him cookies.
That's true.
We plumped him up.
Right, there you go. Well, tell us more about his patron saint. A little bit of a superhero, huh?
So, one of the awesome stories behind St. Nicholas becoming the patron saint of gift giving is he was wandering through a village one night when he stumbled upon a man who had 3 daughters. And he loved his 3 daughters, but St. Nick overheard him say to them, "I don't have enough money for a dowry for you 3. So I'm going to have to sell you to a whorehouse." And St. Nick, being the great old man that he was like, "Oh no, I can't let that happen." So randomly at night, he just started throwing bags of gold through the window. And it happened like 2 or 3 nights, just bag after bag. And then ultimately, he got up on the roof and let through a whole bag of gold through the chimney. And that's one of the reasons they say that Santa Claus comes down the chimney to deliver gifts. Because he saved those 3 women from becoming whores.
Hey, there you go.
Celebrate Santa Claus just for that. But what has been lost to us in these cryptic ages is that St. Nicholas did not travel with reindeer or with elves or anything of the such. In fact, Santa Claus, or St. Nicholas, traveled with demons, murderers, rapists, and even the devil himself.
Right? All around bad folk. And he, like, hung out with some of these people.
Some of them were, like, living up at the North Pole with him and, like, hey.
Right?
We were talking about this earlier. We were saying, what would it be like having, like, instead of a workshop full of elves, just a workshop full of demons?
Right?
And Santa's not like, oh, here, have some cookies, Bellstrap. I'm so glad to see you. But instead, like, work, you demons! And then on Christmas, you'll get to kill.
Right?
Today, we're going to get into the Sharpmina, or the shadows of St. Nicholas.
Ooh. So, let's go to Iceland real quick. We're going to talk about the Yule cat. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce the name.
Jólakötturinn.
But it's also known as the Yule cat or the Christmas cat. And the story kind of goes that anyone who would finish all their, work on time, they would receive new clothes. But any of those who were too lazy to receive new clothes, they would be hunted down and eaten by a giant cat that would lurk around in the snowy countryside. And this was the story the parents would tell their kids so they wouldn't be lazy and get all their work done. Because if you didn't get at least one piece of new clothes, the cat was going to get you. The Yule cat was going to get you. But they also, in the song, suggested that the kids would help out the needy because if they didn't get new clothes, the Yule cat would get them as well. So they were kind of taught to work fast and to be charitable, because if not, you're going to get eaten by a giant cat.
Moving to southeastern Europe, we meet the Kalakatsiaru, which are these tiny Christmas goblins that love to cause mischief and chaos. It's said that if you're not burning a Yule log, they'll slide down your chimney and complete chaos amongst your house, even going so far as to try and steal your newborn child. They're also noted as being reptilian in nature with bright red eyes. They like to slide down chimneys and disembowel children. Now, there are ways to protect yourself from these tiny goblin reptiles. If you have a newborn, you're said to place it in bundles of garlic and straw to confuse them, or families can leave colanders outside their house because these little tiny creatures are so dumb that they cannot count past 2. They will see these holes in the colander and become obsessed with counting the holes. And since they can't count past 2, they will stay outside all 12 days of Christmas, counting every single hole until they have to go back into the ground.
So, this kind of comes from Germany and Switzerland, the Legend of Belsnickel. And generally when you see him, he's a man wearing furs, normally dressed in black. He's very sad looking. Typically disheveled, ragged. He looks homeless. And sometimes he's even wearing a mask and will have a long tongue. And generally, like an uncle or a grandfather would play Belsnickel, and he would make his presence known by either tapping on your window or knocking on your door. Generally, the children would get terrified and run away. So he would come in, the children would kind of gather around him, and he would ask you if you had been good or if you had been naughty. He would usually be carrying a switch with him or like a stick or something, and that's what he would generally tap on the window with. And if you had lied and you had been naughty that year, he would beat you with the stick. But if you had been good, you got to get presents. And also, there is some legend saying that he would drag children into the woods, or children would disappear after seeing Belsnickel and never be seen again. But this legend actually traveled from Germany over to the USA and was still celebrated kind of in small communities in Pennsylvania and might still be celebrated to this very day.
We'll head back to Germany now and talk about Frau Perchetta. Now, this one is really interesting because I got to do extended research today since all of our shit disappeared and found out that it's Frau that's the reason that we leave cookies for Santa. Frau is said to appear as a beautiful woman to the good children and will leave a silver coin to all good people. But to the naughty, she appears as evil incarnate. They even say she looks like just a devil woman or like an evil old haggy witch. And if you're bad, she sneaks into your room with her iron knife and stabs you in the stomach and fills you full of straw, stones, and trash, and then sews you up and displays you like a scarecrow for all the other children to see as not to be naughty next year. Now, there are ways to protect yourself from Frau. It's said that you can eat the proper cakes. They have the special Christmas rolls and Christmas logs. If you eat enough of those, when she stabs you in the belly, the fucking knife will bounce off. But the best way to stay safe is to leave offerings out for Frau. It's said that when you eat your Christmas dinner, you set aside a portion as an offering to Frau and leave it there overnight so that she can consume it. And that is where we get the idea of leaving food out for Santa. But, much like if you see Santa eating cookies, you might get in trouble. With Frau, if you sneak down to catch her eating your Christmas offerings, she makes you go blind. Which I feel like is a little hefty punishment. I feel like...
Yeah, I mean, it's a little fucked up.
I feel like the whole disembowelment thing is a little punishment, is a little heavy for, you know, maybe lying or, like, breaking a toy that's not yours. But, you know, some of these are pretty hectic punishments.
Then next we go to France, and I think parts of Germany. So Hans Trapp was a very rich man who lived in Alsace, but he was a very cruel and vain and like heartless, and it was said that he even worshipped Satan to kind of keep his riches. That's all he cared about. Everything he did was to enrich him more. One day, the Catholic Church found out, and they arrested him and charged him, and he was excommunicated from the church. He lost everything. They came and took all his money, his house, so he was exiled to live out into the forest. Well, out there, he became even more obsessed with Satan and decided that he really wanted to try human flesh. So he dressed up like a scarecrow and hid out, waiting for someone to come by so he could kill them and eat them. One day, a 10-year-old shepherd ended up getting attacked by Trapp, and unfortunately he was killed, and Trapp dragged him back to his house and cut him up and cooked him up, and right when he was about to finally get his first taste of human flesh, he got struck down by lightning. It was said that God struck him down for his evil crimes. And now he is forced to travel with Saint Nick, dressed as a scarecrow, scaring children into being good, and kind of drooling over the fact that he'll never get to eat human flesh. But if you are bad, he will beat you up. He will beat you, but he won't eat you, so... To my knowledge, he won't eat you, he might.
I don't like scarecrows.
I know, imagine him at your window. Like, I would be good.
Jeepers, creepers. And we think Leatherface is scary.
I know, these Christmas demons golly.
I probably would have been more good if I knew fucking a cannibalistic scarecrow was waiting in the dark for me if I didn't fucking eat my green beans.
Right.
Me crying at Christmas. Oh, I can't be at the naughty list.
I told you before, I thought fucking a werewolf was gonna come down my chimney. I guess I was right.
Yeah, no, there are Christmas werewolves too that run around at Yuletide.
So I was right the whole time.
We think there's Frosty, which is probably some kind of demon ghost that's hiding in a fucking snowman.
Right.
Rudolph? Mm-mm.
Oh no. That is a demon for sure. That is definitely a skinwalker.
Right? Hell, it could be Mothman with the glowing red eyes.
Right, with the glowing... I was just about to say that. Oh, man. Whew.
Well, up next is Pierre Foutard. So, Pierre and his wife ran an inn in Turkey, and they actually kidnapped 3 boys and chopped them up and put them in a barrel to pickle them to sell in their meat pies.
Very Sweeney Todd.
St. Nicholas gets his, premonitions, something's wrong here. And he, walks back and he sees this barrel of meat and he's like, shaka-blam! And the 3 children, spring into life. And that's why St. Nicholas is apparently the patron saint of children, or at least in the medieval times, that's why he was. Because he resurrected 3 children that were eviscerated and chopped up. He then turned to Pierre and was like, no, you can't do this. And Pierre was like, oh no. And he's like, you must come with me at Christmas all the time now. Pierre would do so. He had to pledge his life and afterlife to St. Nicholas. And so he accompanies him at Christmas carrying a whipping rod and basket. And St. Nicholas allows him to eat only the naughty children. Which, again, is a little extreme for lying once or twice throughout the year.
Gee whiz.
But according to legend, in the 1930s, Pierre and his wife escaped the clutches of St. Nicholas and became Father Flog in America, where he runs around beating the shit out of children with his whipping rod.
Yeah.
Just randomly. Throughout the month of December, just hopping out behind trees like, pop! Gotcha.
Oh, God. That's terrifying. So, now we're going to the Netherlands. And this one is less scary and more controversial.
I don't know about that.
Of course, we are talking about Black Pete, Zwarte Pie, also known as Black Pete. And yes, we're going exactly where you think we're going. So
all those blackface at Christmas Facebook posts you've been seeing?
Yeah.
That's this thing.
Yes. And he's got a few different stories, actually. Some legends say he's a Moor from Spain. He kind of arrives before Santa Claus, or Saint Nick, to kind of check out the area. I don't really know how to explain it. He kind of comes before. There are some other legends that say he's an actual demon who is forced to work with Saint Nick. He kind of goes. They describe him kind of like the crows for Odin, where he kind of goes to the house and he tells you who's naughty or nice. Some say he actually goes down the chimney and that's why he's black. I don't want to go there. So anyway, that's also a legend. But when you celebrate him, most of these people put on blackface, very colorful clothes, curly wigs, red lips, gold hoops, and recently some of the townspeople are like, you know what, this is racist. We are performing blackface. So there's that. A lot of people defend it in the fact that they're celebrating this tradition. It's not anything to make fun of anyone or to be mean. It's in celebration, but most people see it as a racist thing, especially because they're in blackface. I don't know, but yeah. That's Black Pete.
The next demon that travels with Saint Nick is Satan himself. In many Christian depictions of the Saint Nicholas's travels, you see Lucifer standing in judgment of the children. And it's said that Saint Nick would give the good children toys and shoes and shit, and Satan would punish them and possibly drag them to hell to be eaten. But at the end of their journey, St. Nicholas would ask them to recite their prayers, and Satan would ask them to sing and dance, both the good and naughty children. And in the Czech Republic, even to this day, there's a specific, liturgical bell ringing service called the Devil's Knell, where the bells ring for, a non-stop amount of hours, just continuously. And bell ringers from great and wide, bid for the chance to do this. But it's often thought that if the bells don't ring, then the devil will return and bring hell to earth on Christmas.
Hell to earth on Christmas. That would be an awful Christmas.
Right?
But does this lead us to Big Daddy?
This leads us to Big Daddy. The Christian
okay,
interpretation is Satan. But they got this because they couldn't get rid of the originator. The original demon daddy that ran around with St. Nicholas on Christmas.
Goat! Half demon!
1000% beast. It's the one, the only, Krampus.
So this legend, no one really knows where the legend of Krampus comes from. It's just been around for a very long time.
Some even say the mountains themselves gave birth to Krampus.
Ooh.
And others say that he's a forgotten god from pagan times.
I can see that.
This dude is like
A scary
bent
goat
over,
man.
big ass horns, long ass tongue, fangs ready to pounce, all black fur,
Right?
with a whip
And a human foot.
and a human foot, one hoof and one human foot. That's very important.
Yes. Carrying like a basket or a sack, and carrying fucking Brussels. I can't even say it.
A bustle of birchwood twigs that's actually like switches to beat the
Right?
children.
And later he gets chains and a whip, which I think is very naughty of him.
He also has sleigh bells attached to him. You hear bells when he moves.
Yes. Or chain. Well, I just did that.
Glowing red eyes. Another major
Oh.
factor.
My gosh. It is said that Krampus is actually the son of Hel.
Yes, in Nordic traditions, he's the son of Hel, the god of
Yes,
Hell.
and that is Loki's daughter.
Yeah.
Which, that's just a great family. I mean, if you're gonna come from somebody, I think that's the family to come from. You know? No?
I mean, Loki in the Avengers is a little bit different than Loki
No, I'm
in
not talking
Nordic.
about...
Loki's a
Yeah.
dick, okay?
Right?
Loki is a straight up dick. He kills multiple people just because he's like, I'm bored.
I mean, but what else are you gonna do in those times?
Maybe not kill the other
You know what?
gods.
Let's go back to Krampus. We're not talking about Loki here.
Other names for Krampus are the Anti-Santa, the Shadow of St. Nicholas, and Krampus the Christmas Demon, which is my personal favorite.
Right?
In High German, his name is actually Krampun, which means claw.
Yes. But Krampus was actually not an anti-Santa. Though he was opposite of Santa. Not Santa. Saint Nick. My bad. He's like hung around with Saint Nick. Saint Nick would, reward the good children, and then he would send in Krampus to... What did he do, Dakota? What would Krampus do?
Well, Krampus would do a variety of different things depending on the level of severity of your naughtiness. From terrifying you, to spanking you with birchwood sticks, to whipping you. to throwing you in his basket and dragging you off to hell to be sacrificed and eaten in multiple different variety of ways, like throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And Krampus had a hunger, a very deep-seated hunger.
What was he hungry for, Dakota?
Flesh. Children flesh.
Right. Sounds like some other people we know.
But it wasn't actually until about the 11th and 13th centuries. The Christians weren't happy that while they were celebrating the birth of their Christ, this giant hairy goat man was running around spanking children and eating them. So they tried to get rid of him by turning him into Satan. Well, that didn't take hold. People were still like, Krampus is coming, Krampus is coming. So they were like, okay, if we can't get rid of this, we're going to put the chains on him. Because the chains actually represent the devil's binding. And these were added after the Inquisition when they couldn't convert people to get rid of the idea of Krampus. But that is when Krampus and Saint Nick are no longer buddies. It's at this point when the church tries to manipulate the idea to say Krampus is under the control of Saint Nicholas, and then we have a plethora of other demons at bay. But Krampus is still celebrated even to this day. Still couldn't get rid of
my
him.
gosh. I love this. Me and Dakota are going to go to one of these.
In fact, December 5th is known as Krampusnacht or Krampuslauf, which is the pagan Krampus parade used to remind children of the coming doom. Amanda, explain to us what happens at this parade.
Oh my lord. So these men, and it was specific. I read many articles and it was very specific about this one fact. They're all drunk. And they make these crazy costumes dressing up as Krampus. I watched some of these videos. Dakota, you saw some too. These masks are amazing. Some are just...
Some of them are. Some of them are.
I saw one that...
Some of them
really
look
glowing.
like a cheap production of Where the Wild Things Are.
Truth. But some of these people go all out. There's mechanical shit, these long ass horns, these tongues. Like I said, there's this one that had like glowing eyes. But they'll parade down the street and they will chase after people and actually like whip people on the street. Like it's a giant drunken parade where these Krampuses go wild.
And it actually stems from a real pagan parade that was practiced hundreds and hundreds of years ago, where a town elder would dress up as St. Nicholas, and a young man from the town would dress up as Krampus, and they both would parade through the town going door to door to judge children, to help remind the children not to be naughty and whatnot. And there's even instances where if the child was found to be naughty and bad enough, the young man dressed as Krampus would actually grab the child and throw him or her into the basket and run to the house next door and give them a good scolding. But to everybody else in the house, except the parents, that kid was kidnapped. Could you imagine being a sibling and all of a sudden, like, Krampus actually steals your brother?
Oh my god.
You're like, I am never going to be bad again.
Right. I forgot. In the other parade, the ones they do now, some people do dress up like Saint Nick, but a lot more people dress up as Krampus.
Yeah, no, and they still run through the streets and whip people and attack people and just drunkenly fight people.
Right.
In these beautiful, elaborate costumes.
Another tradition some parents would do is they would have a gold bunch of these birch branches that they would hang on their wall to remind their children not to be bad or Krampus was going to come for them. Which would keep me in line. Like,
I mean...
thought of that.
Exactly. Especially if the year before you just saw your sibling get kidnapped.
Right?
Be like, nah, fuck that.
Right, I'm good. I'm being good. I'm so good.
I wonder if that's why kids behaved better back then.
Probably.
Scared to death that they were going to die every day. If it wasn't of smallpox or plague, it was going to be Krampus.
Or fairies.
Fuck.
Or werewolves, shit.
But it's actually not only the church that found Krampus to be too evil.
Oh my god.
This little tidbit is amazing. In 1934, the New York Times ran an article about the shifting in German politics and their opinions on Krampus, the Christmas demon. The New York Times ran an article that said, quote, Krampus disliked even by fascists. It was an article that called out the Third Reich, saying that Krampus was too evil for them and that it needed to be stamped out of their society. They called Krampus a socialist and deemed it like an enemy of the state, but it didn't take hold. Krampus still survived.
There was another government that forbid Krampus and all the Krampus dances, and they pledged when they saw Krampus, they were going to arrest him, which I would have loved to see. I mean,
yeah, my money's on Krampus.
Imagine being that police officer. Like,
fuck y'all, I quit.
Right?
No.
But it doesn't matter how many times the church or the government tried to stamp out Krampus. He always makes a comeback. He's making a comeback right now.
Yeah, I mean, he even had a whole stint in the Victorian era on beautiful postcards where Krampus even showed up as a young man, as a little guy. Then they also have him as the demon that he is and we love, and where he's torturing children. But people were obsessed, sending them everywhere. And then, as Amanda said, we have it nowadays, even with that bad Krampus movie.
I haven't seen it. Did you watch it?
I've seen it before. It's not terrible, but it's not the Krampus we know and love.
Oh. But yeah, Krampus has been on television.
American Dad!
Yeah. He's been in movies. There's a poems the night before Krampus. Like, even in America, they're having more celebrations in big cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, D.C., New Orleans, where they're having Krampus events. So, I don't know. The more I studied Krampus, the more I kind of liked him. I'm not going to lie.
You can take the demon out of Christmas, but you can't take the Christmas out of the demon. But yeah, that's Krampus, y'all.
Yes.
And that's the final episode of 2018.
Yeah.
And season 1. Woo!
It's been a good season.
It's been a great season. Thank you all so much for coming out and listening to us and giving us your time.
Once again, we're sorry that the episode is late.
Really, we don't know what happened. The audio just completely cut out. Something didn't want this story told, but we're making sure it gets out there. If you like what you hear, please follow us on Facebook at Encounters a Paranormal Experience. You can find us on Instagram at Encounters a Paranormal and on Tumblr at Encounters a Paranormal EXP. We're also on YouTube. Find us at Encounters a Paranormal Experience. If you like what you hear, why not leave a rating and review on iTunes? Every rating and review helps, and Amanda and I would love you dearly. And until next year, I'm Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
Stay spooky.